Welcome to the East Lake Community Church podcast, Second Take at East Lake, where we have the strongest hat game of all pastors in Columbia.
That's
Well,
right.
if I had known, I feel a little left out because, I have hats I could have put on. That's all I can say.
Ray,
But I'm not at home.
Your hat almost looks like a Seahawks hat from here, Ray. So that makes me happy, considering who they're going to beat this week. Lord willing.
I think Michelle has one of those tiny hats on the back that,
Right.
whatever those are called.
Philip, Rob thinks that the
Yarmulke.
Seahawks are going to beat Dallas on Thursday Night Football.
I'm
Did you
hoping.
catch
Yeah.
that?
I don't think so. I feel like Dallas plays. I think it's too early in the season for Dallas to start messing up because they usually get it right up until the end, and then they throw it away.
Not playoffs. Not
Yeah.
the playoffs yet. That's right.
Yeah, they'll start messing up at the very end, about the time everybody gets hope.
Oh, God.
That's exactly true. So not. I was a little surprised you couldn't see me, Michelle, because behold, my
Oh,
son.
my. Oh, your son's going to kill you.
Well, this was up at all the football games for the whole year, but so here now it's at our house, and I can display it proudly wherever I want to. I want to put it on the front of the garage up high.
Oh yeah, I think you should put it into a vinyl wrap and put it on your car.
They did three different poses, and I have all three poses, but this is the one he chose to blow up. This is a 5 foot tall canvas.
Wow.
And I'm like,
You
that one.
get your whole Kia wrapped in there. You get your whole Kia wrapped in, Jacob.
He's just doing his own thing, man. He's just got his mellophone there. He's just being Jacob.
I love it. Okay, so we kind of have this quest for the best thing that's kind of it's always going. If any of us go somewhere that we enjoy and we got to rate it. So we're doing a little bit of a quest for the best today off of the new, is it a new Arby's cheeseburger?
Wait, whoa. Well, I didn't know about this.
Yeah, it was a random pop-up. So you need to go get you a Arby's big, huge
Good burger.
a
It's
good
called
burger.
a good.
Yeah.
And is it a good burger?
I'll let Ray answer first. He's the foodie.
Well, I'll tell you this. It is cooked to medium.
That's nice.
Okay. It's smaller than what I thought it was going to be.
But they have meat.
Huh?
But they have the meats. How come they're not giving you a big meat?
Well, I mean, it is. I mean, it's at least the thickness of my thumb. The patty.
It is
It's
a thick patty.
It's a thick patty.
So it's a quarter pounder at least. I mean, we're not supposed to eat more than 4 ounces of red meat at a time,
Oh,
Uh-oh.
stop it. Stop.
Well, I'm in
stop.
trouble.
I know.
Oops.
Well, I'm just trying to help you.
So much
You're
for
not
that
gonna-
16-ounce ribeye.
I would say it is about a quarter pound, if not a third. It might be a third.
It's a big fatty. It is the
Okay.
fattest hamburger you can get at a fast food restaurant.
That's fair.
Okay.
But
That's fair.
go ahead, Ray.
The flavor, the flavor was okay. Would I get another? Unless if somebody bought it for me, but I wouldn't put my money on it again.
Yeah.
Uh,
My thoughts on it.
The shake was good.
There you go. My thoughts on this Arby's big whopping burger is that it was a thick patty. However, because they didn't grill it over charcoal or something, it just tastes like meat. It just tastes like a big slab of meat. There's nothing going on there. It's just a big chunk of meat. And to me, if you're gonna cook a big fatty patty, you got to throw that sucker over some smoke or something. You gotta do something special.
Yep.
So they didn't season it well? Season well?
I didn't taste any seasoning, honestly. I tasted seasoning in the sauce.
The sauce. There you go, Philip. That's it.
Yeah, but I didn't taste anything in the patty. All in all, combined with the 20-minute wait I had to do, because Lord knows they're not set up to cook a hamburger in there. I don't know. It's okay. I do it in a pinch. But I'm gonna stick with the classic Wendy's Dave's Double. You know, it kind of melts in your mouth like a Krispy Kreme. There's so much fat in there. It just soaks into the bun. It does all the things it's supposed to do.
Everybody wants a Dave's double the way you just described it.
I don't want either now. Thank you very much for these unburger commercials.
Yep.
I don't
Okay.
know. I
just
think
wants
you should go to
salad.
Lucky's for a burger. I don't know.
Lucky's does have a good burger. I will.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a good burger. But my go-to in town is just a good old-fashioned Dave's Double.
Hey,
I even go to Sonic every once in a while, and it's pretty good, the Super Sonic. But I really just want a Dave's Double. They got a sweetened bun with a little sugar in it.
Philip, what are we gonna do when they open up Whataburger over here in Ballantyne?
We're gonna give them business. Did you guys have Whataburger where you used to live?
No, but I love Whataburger. Come on now. Let's get it on.
we're getting one.
Yeah.
I know. Right up next to Colby.
I know.
Good Lord. Valentine's coming out.
Yeah.
Welcome to Second Take at Eastlake, a podcast of Eastlake Community Church in Irmo, South Carolina. You are invited to join us any Sunday at 9 or 11. All right, well, let's get to the goodness of this podcast. So, I was listening to like this world famous podcast this morning. I won't share which one it was, but it's a big one. And I was like, wow, they're really good. We're going to have to up our game, guys. There's a reason they have like 1 million listeners.
Okay.
It was a good one, though. And they get right to the point. None of this riffraff you guys try to make me do.
Oh, okay, because that would be our fault.
It's you guys' fault. So in honor of me trying to be better, let's get to it. So this was the last series, last sermon in our series called Gracism. And it was called, the title was I Will Heal With You, which is a new saying. So if you don't know, the book Gracism has a bunch of sayings of a gracist. There were 7 of them, right? Now there's an 8th,
Great.
which is I will heal with you.
Yep.
And
Right.
I think the interesting thing about this series is that it reveals that all of us need to heal. We all have something that we're in a state of healing from. And so really nobody gets this one off. Nobody gets any of them off, but this one just is really easy to identify with. It doesn't take much convincing to show us that we need healing. So I just thought it'd be cool to hear from you guys on along that same line of healing, but like, what was your favorite part of Gracism? So, oh, there's Kristen with
Hey,
laundry.
Kristen.
Hi, Kristen.
Like, what was your favorite thing? Did it have any healing aspects for you, or we'll start with the positive and then we'll get to what was the hardest thing. But I want to hear what the best thing was this time around. We've done it 3 times.
I will say this real quick and be done with this part. It started when Dr. Anderson came to visit us and was meeting with the staff. And there's one of the subtle changes that is really important that I see in the entirety of the book is this acknowledgement of those that are fighting for justice of all shades of skin. Not that it wasn't there before, but there's more of an overt calling out by Dr. Anderson. And Ray, you do this well and have before, but in this series, I heard it more and more of a thank you to those of us that are not people of color who are engaging in this fight, not out of some sense of guilt, but out of some sense of calling. And this idea that y'all understanding and acknowledging that even though it's harder for you, for sure, people of color, because you don't have a chance to back out of it. There was this acknowledgement of all of the people in the room who are not people of color. And it happened in the Gracism class, and it happened in the series throughout all the speaking and the content of acknowledging that there are many who are sacrificing and deciding to do the right thing to fight against systemic things and this racial issue. And I thought that was really good. And it was done from a very positive bent, not a put down to those that weren't, but a positive uplift of those that are.
Yeah.
I agree.
Good thing.
Yeah.
You know, for me doing the series, I mean, I like teaching it on Sunday morning, but the best part is just what happened in our Gracism groups. We initially had 136 people sign up for Gracism groups, students 8th grade and above, as well as adults. And that just is an overwhelming number of people. I don't think we've had that many people in a program since we first kicked off Rooted. And we had so many people getting in Rooted that we had like 8 or 10 groups. So yeah, it was just really gratifying because it feels like people are latching on to the message. And some people came through for their second or third time and expressed learning new things, which was very cool.
Yeah.
Yep, I would have to agree. Just the sheer overwhelming number of people in the Gracism groups. I mean, sitting through the sermons, I mean, that's good. You can gain some knowledge from that, but you don't have much of an interaction. You don't have much of an opportunity to interact sitting knee to knee with people. Like when we first started, I remember Philip had made this challenge. He said, hey, do me a favor. If you have an issue or you want to talk about this, do the hard work of finding somebody that's different than you to have that conversation with. Don't go have it with a regular circle. And unfortunately, some people did that anyway. But rather, go meet with somebody that's different than you to gain a better perspective on what was being taught. And that's really what happens in the Gracism groups. And so I am grateful for the 136 people that started off with us. We had more than 90% of that class that actually finished it. So that was, I think that's another win that I can celebrate as well. But I think just the conversations and the stories that we got to hear over 9 weeks, and to see this past Sunday night, having them share how grateful they were, how it's already has blessed them to be able to go out and have conversations and listen in ways that they had not been before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really good, Ray. I just want to say, add to you, both of you, to anyone listening who hasn't sat in a Gracism group, I can say this with authority, you don't really understand Gracism yet. And I don't say that judgmentally. I just want to make sure you know when you're judging Gracism, if you haven't sat in a group of diverse people and had these conversations, then you're entitled to your opinion, and I totally honor that. But don't think that you understand what Gracism is about, because Gracism is about those conversations that take place where people just tell their stories, and it's not about debating who's right and who's wrong. It's somebody giving you an honest, this happens to me, or this is where I come from. And that's the part I'm sad that people are missing, kind of shifting gears a little bit. Like, I wish more people understood the importance of that piece of the conversation, because that's how you can see the fullness of the gospel play out in the faces and lives of the people around that table.
Mm-hmm.
It's the difference. Oh, go ahead.
No, because this is a longer story. You say.
Oh, this isn't a long story. This is really short. It's the difference I just saw in your window. There is I'm sorry. I saw a shadow behind Michelle.
Oh, you saw a shadow. Okay, got it.
So here's what it is. Seriously, it's the difference of reading your Bible and going to the place that all those things happen in and experiencing. I've been reading the Bible. I'm 49. I've been reading the Bible for almost 30 years of my life. But you know what changed it? when I was in Jerusalem, when I was in Galilee, when I was in Capernaum, it means something totally different to me now. And so if you just picked up the book and have started reading Gracism, and whether you finished it or you wrestle with it or you're not happy with it or you've thrown it, it's totally different when you experience it with and where it actually hits. Completely different.
Yeah. Well, and so that kind of leads into my story. So I had a person who went into Gracism really feeling like, okay, I just don't see this. I don't see racism today in the way you guys talk about it. And they kind of challenged me and said, okay, come on, convince me. And I'm like, I'm not convincing you. But to this person's credit, they trust me enough. I have enough chips with them, I guess, that they took my advice and signed up for Gracism again. And this person said that they really thought that racism was not taking place in our community. And then they heard stories from people who are the non-majority culture about incidences that happened right in Irmo and in South Carolina. And their eyes were opened. And they're like, okay, I see this in a different way. And so I know it's uncomfortable. I watch people go in and they're uncomfortable. But if you will just stay in there for the whole conversation so that you can learn, if you get to the end and you say, of Gracism groups, and you say, okay, I'm out, I can't believe in this, I can't do this, well, okay, then you've really experienced it. But until you've been through that class and the whole way through the class, you really don't understand what we're talking about. Rob is right. And this person had been through Gracism once before. It took twice to really recognize it.
Yep.
You know what I think did that, and I can't speak for that person, but here's what I noticed. This time that when we did Gracism, we had a much more diverse cross section in the room.
Oh,
Meaning
yes.
there was a good number of people of color and white people, men and women. By the way, I felt like there were more men and women diversity in this group.
Yes.
There was more
Yep.
diversity in this group.
Yep.
And to me, it kind of like the story that I wanted to share real fast is about Kayla, who I've got a big long note from her here, which I can't share everything. You know, you guys remember I asked her permission to share some of her story, but who is an incredible woman, who is of Indian descent, Muslim background, but is a Caribbean culturally. So and it just was fascinating to hear her share on the last night how when she finally got into this community after moving from Toronto 9 years ago, which is a very diverse community, she had felt very out of place. No one ever saw her uniqueness. And this is my pushback on the colorblind thing. She didn't want us to be colorblind, nor does she want us to treat her like, you know, with pity. But what she wants us to do is to celebrate the fact that she is a Ghanaian from Guyana, the West Indies, from Muslim descent, who has figured out how to love people well and is pursuing God with everything that she has. And friends, that is an awesome thing. And for me, it was really special to hear her share because she reminded me in our conversation today that it was my daughter's friendship with her son from first grade on that gave her the courage to walk up to me in a Walmart and say, would it be okay if I came to your church? I know you're June's dad. And she came over, and what I didn't know until she shared that night, and we've been talking about ever since then, is how trepidatious she was about entering another church world where she was going to yet again be misunderstood, and instead found a place where people are like, hey, we just love you for who you are, and we want to celebrate who you are. And I think that was really neat to me. Again, just this was the best Gracism we've done. So I'm going to shut up because I have so many.
You don't have to. So on along that same lines, like this is definitely, there's a reason every church in America is not doing this because it's hard.
It is.
Easy.
It's hard. What I'm curious for you guys, you know, as much as you can share, what's the hardest part of this? Like, I feel a little bit like we just went through boot camp and I wasn't even a facilitator, but like,
Absolutely. I
what's the
think the
hardest
hardest
part?
thing, I think the hardest thing is reliving trauma. The trauma of rejection, the trauma of having to convince people of something that is a reality to you, that this is not something that you're making up. Um, one of the things that's probably the most traumatizing to me is if you know me. I mean, if you really know me beyond the love of barbecue, that I can sometimes be a little fashionista with matching shoes and shirts and stuff like that. I hope that the one thing that comes across to every person is that I love people, that I genuinely love people. And if you know that to be true, then you also have to know that when people walk out of your life, that's hard. And not because you're trying to make people mad or you're trying to send them out of your life, but when your pain becomes too uncomfortable for them, or them having to wrestle with maybe any amount of truth to your pain, and they hit the eject button and they say that I'm out, that's hard. Because I don't think that I have asked anybody since I've been here at East Lake 5 years now, and since I've been at quote unquote the helm, I don't think I have asked one person, would you just please leave? And so when people choose to leave, especially without having a conversation to try to understand, that hurts. Um, there was one time, Philip, that I actually wanted to really air a little bit of the pain of this um, across the stage, because I wanted people to know this job is extremely hard. It really is.
Yeah.
You know, people when people first come and they tell you how much they love it here, and how they when they bring their friends or family or coworkers and say, hey, I want you to meet my pastor, or when I'm out in public, they happen to see me and they say, hey, this is my pastor. So I'm having a full-on conversation in the middle of Walmart with a complete stranger and somebody that goes to East Lake. And then when that person all of a sudden decides that I'm done, and then I have to hear from somebody else of the fact that they've left, or why they left, and yet never had a conversation with me. That's hard.
Yeah.
Wow. Right.
Yeah.
Mine has always been the thing about being the white guy that wants everybody to like him because I'm a feeler and God's got me saying these sort of things. But it shifted this time. Because I've shared about some events in my son's life over the years that are real. And some stuff happened with Jacob this time that was just much more real than ever. And I won't rehash it. We shared it. You shared it from the stage. We shared it in Gracism about an incident where my son experienced direct racial attack. And I had people basically looking me in the eye while I'm sharing that story. There was a couple of them around my world, not just in this world here, but outside of this piece, basically telling me that there's not a problem anymore. And that's traumatic as a dad. You're telling me that my son's trauma isn't real. My son actually being threatened, not some ethereal little, somebody called him a bad name. He was threatened. And and it's related to yours. I hadn't even been thinking about it until you said that, Ray. Is this new trauma for me of not when is it going to happen to my son, but now it's happened to my son. And there are people that look like me still denying that it happened to my son. Like, what am I lying about that? Like, did my son lie that night when he called me in tears, come and get me, help me, help me? You know, that's very hard. But it reminds me of why we do it. So on the positive side, we have to keep doing it because there's people that think that's not happening. But that was the hardest thing. Was literally I had 2 or 3 people question the story of what happened to my son, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, the last night of Gracism, when people were having the opportunity to talk about what impacted them, I really appreciated, oh, I can't say the person's name because I don't have permission to tell the story. But, and it wasn't just one person. There were at least two people that publicly expressed appreciation for the minority culture people in the room who were willing to do that thing that you're talking about, Ray, which is live through your own trauma again, to share with us what is happening so that we can grow and benefit and understand. Because the truth is, if you weren't willing to risk that, if you and others that were in the room were not willing to risk that, then we would not understand in the same way. We couldn't understand. We might not be able to be convinced. And I can only imagine how you, as the person who is carrying this mantle all the time, how encouraging that was to have people from your culture and other cultures come alongside, that we had so much diversity in that room and you're not the only person speaking about your experience. That has to have been really encouraging for you, or at least it would have for me if I were you.
It was very encouraging for me. I got to look back on this past Sunday night and be thankful for a lot of things. And one of them is for the four of you. Because I know that you guys are in the trenches with me. But one of the special gifts that many of you don't even know about, it was Philip. Philip had the luxury for many of our weeks to be able to be at home with his family on Sunday night. And so there were two other individuals, really three, but two other individuals that one really consistently was there every Sunday night to help us with AV, and that was Andy Blang. And Andy, if you ever listen to this, you probably won't, but brother, bless you. Thank you for working alongside of us. But I think it was a real gift this past Sunday to have you, Philip, because you've been in the trenches with us. And you had not gotten to experience, all the stuff we had been experiencing over the last 8 weeks. And so, Sunday night was not the night of celebration. That was the week before. This was the night about closing the study out. We're talking about healing. And you got to sit up in the tech booth and help run slides and stuff. But you got to hear for yourself what happened this particular class. And this was like really the best class. It was the biggest class. It was the most challenging class, but I think as a staff, we have settled into this lane that we believe the Lord has carved out for us. And I think we did not just the book well, I think we did the experience well.
Yeah, it was cool. I really enjoyed getting to hear everybody's stories. It was nice for me to get to be there. I will say my favorite thing, I know we're talking about the hardest thing, but my favorite thing, I think, was that being in this journey, I guess I've been in it for 4 years. When we started, we weren't that diverse of a church. Like we wanted to be a diverse church, but I would say, we were taking all the right steps, but it doesn't, this kind of thing doesn't happen overnight. And to me, I was celebrating that you can see the progress all over the place. You can see the progress, to think of people like Kayla, that, actually looking for a place like this. Like that's one of the things that I hope old Eastlakers that have been here for a long time will see, is that there's a whole host of people that are looking for a place to belong. They're diverse, interracially, couples. They're people from other countries. They're saying, I love Jesus, but I don't fit in anywhere. And all of a sudden they come across a place like Eastlake and they're like, wait a minute, I can fit in here. And so I'm getting to see that, and it makes me happy. But it brings me up to a great question, because what is going to happen once we make it through the trenches? I don't know when we'll be done with the trenches. We're still in the trenches a little bit, but I think that there will be a point, and it's probably already starting to happen, where other leaders in the community, other churches start to say, okay, I'm interested. Like, now that we've kind of like paved the way, that they might
Yeah.
be looking around and saying, you know what, I have a monoculture in my church, I have a single culture in my church. I want to do this. So the question is like, is there anything that you would say to a person that wants to start living a multicultural lifestyle, or a leader who wants to start leading their business or church towards that? Because it's catching on. It's not going away. I mean, our world is becoming diverse. You can't,
Right.
Sunday
It's not,
morning is the only time that we're that divided. You can't go anywhere and be the only culture.
Right.
And I don't know how churches end up being so far behind on this, but unfortunately we are a lot of times. But anyways, back to the question. Any advice or thoughts? Somebody who's been watching us that would say, tell me how to get started.
get a mentor. Get a mentor that is of the very culture or cultures you're attempting to build.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, you know, honestly, except for the Lord, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. I was comfortable in an all African American church doing what we do week in and week out. It was in 2000, and I think it was 6, when the Lord had told me and my wife we were moving, and we weren't moving addresses, we were moving churches. And I can count on one hand the amount of churches that I have been in, membership wise, partnership, whatever you want to call it, as an adult. And all of them were orchestrated by him. And so when we left the church that we got married in and went to an all white church, yeah, we could have went to 100 different churches. We passed 100 different churches. The Lord told us to go to a specific church. And so we sat in that church. We were loved on. We were challenged in lots of ways, but we were where we were supposed to be. And that was equipping me to be where I'm at today. So I had lots of mentors that were not the same culture as I was. So I was forced into learning. And mind you, I went to multi-ethnic schools. So I was already there. But as far as church was like that secret and sacred space.
Which it is for a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, me going to have my whole world wrecked by Michael W. Smith, Chris Tomlin, Ren Collective, people that I was not listening to before, Casting Crowns, Jeremy. I mean, these were not people that were being played in my church. But going to listen to and learning to worship differently has aided me and benefited me well.
Go here first for a while. This is the Bible. For real. If I could go back in time, before I jumped both feet into this thing, I would have done even more digging into the fact that this is not some kind of a politicized topic for 2023, but it is the narrative of this entire book.
Absolutely.
And what I mean by that is, from the beginning till right now, all the way up till the end, you see a celebration of, embracing of multicultural ministry. Even in the chosen people of Israel, you see them being given specific ways to treat foreigners. Right up until the Gospels and beyond, this idea of these Jews and these Gentiles merging together created all the same strife we see today. And so what I'm saying is, get a good theological backbone. That mentor is really important, 100%. But more important than that mentor is a mentor that's going to turn you into the scripture to see that you're standing on the gospel. Because one of the biggest things you're going to get pushed back on is they're going to be, can't we just be about the gospel? Fair question, by the way. Show them this is the gospel. Show them that it's not because of the news headlines. It's because since the beginning of time, God has pushed us into this conversation, and we've just forgotten to be about it until recently. So go here. theologically equip yourself first.
Yeah.
It's good, Rob.
Yeah. I think I see a lot of churches catching on to this. You know, it's funny how God works, but God's doing this across the board. Like the number one music is not just because I attend a multicultural church, but Maverick City is out there killing it right now musically. You know, I mean, talk about diverse. Like, if you want to look at who's at the top of the worship, everything, it's people that are diverse. It's diverse groups of people. And we're consuming this stuff that they're writing because it's beautiful and it's different and it's fresh and it's right. And so, like, I feel like worship leaders across the world are like, wait a minute, I just played acoustic guitar in college and now I'm supposed to, what the, how am I supposed to do this? And it's like, man, buckle up because it's not going away. It's taken off and God is doing something with this. And just if you look around at it, the church is the last place to finally acknowledge it. Why are we always the last? I don't get it. I don't get it. But we're always the last. I mean, like, a lot of other parts of the world started to embrace multicultural concepts. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, Disney's doing it. Don't let Disney
Well,
beat the church. Come on.
no, don't let Disney beat the church. And I mean, it really shouldn't be a surprise to see that God is speaking the same things to other people. And so I think in any move of God, you've got to have people that are on the front end. Ray, we joke with him about being a prophet and having a prophetic edge. But there's something to be said about that. When you're talking about moving into the future, you need a certain amount of prophetic edge to be able to see and embrace what God is moving you to next. And so, I mean, it would be delightful if all over America and the world, people started worshiping together instead of segregating themselves into little groups. Because when the church started, that wasn't how it was. There's a lot more people in the church today than there was, in the 200 years after Jesus left. But it would be amazing to see more churches doing what we're doing.
Yep. I agree. So, was there any special, and you might have already shared these, so it's okay if there's not anything new, but is there any stories that you can share that came out of this that you would just say, like, man, look at God and what he did, through this series? Kind of goes along with your favorite part, but I'm just curious if there's any specific stories.
I think for me personally, and this does not highlight a particular person, but there's a lot of there has to be a lot of comfortability for people that are not in what I would consider regular relationship with one another to get into a room of 130 plus people and share your story.
Mm.
That is really a work of the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, I'm on stage regularly, and Philip, so are you. And I mean, you'll ask people to just to say what you're grateful for, to give thanks for, and it's like crickets. And that's not even a hard thing. I mean, really, you're not asking them to get down and unearth some horrible thing. You're asking them to say, thank you, God, for.
Mm.
In Gracism, you're literally asking people to tell me about that scar.
Mm.
How'd you get that? And we're asking people to explore their pain.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also asking people to even dig into their own ignorances and to be okay displaying that. And for a room full of people from between, 8th grade to 80 years old to be able to feel safe to share that to anybody listening that didn't get to participate in Gracism. We will be doing it again. I can't tell you when, but I know we will. Please don't miss the opportunity to go through the Gracism groups because it will change your life and it will equip you for the change that's happening in our world every day. That for some of us, we feel like we're running behind the school bus because we got left.
Yeah, it's true.
Mine, I shared Kayla's, but what I haven't unpacked with you guys much, except for you and Michelle Ray a little bit, is the great conversations that happened at our students' tables. Because we had the students separate, because we went younger in age, so we didn't want to be too. We wanted to be careful. So Malcolm led one, and I led the other. And my group was supposed to have a few guys that didn't show. So some of those people, so I ended up at a table with all girls. My small group with all these young ladies. And to me, I was struck by just how vulnerable they were, even with a guy at the table.
Yep.
And in some ways, I think because there was a guy at the table who could tell them if their perspective was wrong, because they talked a lot about, because again, remember, Gracism is just about black and white. Yeah. Okay. It's about navigating all of these relationships. And so for them, there were a lot of times they would turn and ask me questions about why do guys blank? And it was like I got to be like the grandfather, father figure who would kind of be like, yeah, that's stupid. We're dumb. Here's why. Or la, la, la. But the vulnerability that they chose to have with each other at an age when it's really easy to have that used against you in the world that they're living in middle school and early high school was just, it was very touching to me that they opened up not only with me, but with each other and trusted each other. By about week 3, it took a couple weeks, but by about week 3, they were like, these are the people I can trust. And so they were having really hard conversations. Some of them were African-American, so they were talking about that. And others were wrestling in gender areas, just how to navigate that thing with their friends, themselves maybe. They were never very clear. But it was about this whole gender topic and identity topic. And it was just awesome. And it reminded me why I love what I do. To see them do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think my favorite thing was a quote that I captured from Teresa Anderson when I was filming people's responses to Gracism. And because she said it publicly, I feel comfortable sharing that, so she has adopted children that are of a different ethnicity than her. And she works as a teacher. And so she has an opportunity to love on a very diverse group of students. And she said the thing that she learned in Gracism was that it's not enough to not be a racist. That just because you're not a racist does not make you a gracist, because you have to learn the skills that you learn to manage the 7 sayings and to do those things. And that makes you proactively become a gracist. And that just blessed me that she said, not being a racist is not enough. You've got to go further. That was very cool.
That is very cool.
I love that.
It's definitely helped me navigate just life in general. I start to see people differently than I used to. You talk about the whole we don't want to be colorblind thing. That is so true. Because like, for instance, just the other day I was at, I don't know, Kohl's or somewhere, returning wherever you take stuff to return to Amazon. I was at that place, and there was somebody in line, and it was an African-American lady, and accidentally cut in front of her. And I didn't know. She was leaning against the wall, and I didn't know that I cut in front of her. But as soon as I realized, I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. But the old me would have just seen that that's just another person. I apologize, and it's all over. But I feel like the new me was like, she might have been getting looked over all day today. Like she might be feeling, like to just go a step further and continue to make conversation with her. And, and not just like any other person, I might just be like, hey, I'm sorry. But I felt like I saw her color. I saw that maybe today was a day that she hadn't been acknowledged or something. And maybe I'm making all that up. But like, there's nothing wrong with going above and beyond. There's nothing wrong with seeing somebody and going above and beyond. And if that's the worst that we do, So
Yeah.
I see that stuff playing out in my life all the time. Little things like that happen where I just start to see people differently than just overlooking them, or just, I don't know. I feel like I put a little extra noticing in
Well,
to
that's
cultures.
the perfect example of the whole definition of gracism, where you give special attention to somebody, maybe because of the color of their skin. And people get all wrapped around the axle like we're doing some terrible thing promoting somebody over someone else. No, you're taking the time to look at a person and say, wow, your experience is different than mine, and therefore I want to go out of my way, knowing that there are people who are maybe unkind to you. Not everybody, but some. And if somebody that looks like me was unkind to you today, I want to make up for that. I want to be different than that.
Yeah. And it could be an elderly person. It could be African American. It could
Yep.
be anybody. It's just seeing people. Just start to like empathize and not just, it's not that hard. And you're right. People get so upset, like we're going to treat everybody equal, but so you treated somebody extra nice. Like, get over it. Like, what's the big deal?
And that's where we get so stuck, because this is so Western. I'm not even going to blame America. I'm going to blame the West in general. My desire every day, and I fail at this some days, so don't hear me say I'm good at this. I don't want to treat everybody equally. I want to treat people better than people are treating me.
Yeah.
So maybe I know that what they're getting wrapped up in. I get it. I get that, somebody's getting a job just because or so. We can have, that's another conversation. But Jesus taught me to treat everybody better than they deserve, because that's what Jesus did. I deserved separation from God, and he treated me better than that. And so for me, when we get our hands around that, it's like what I got to say in several of my messages, and I said it on Sunday nights in our Gracism time. I just want to make sure everybody understands. I don't think most of you who can hear my voice are racist. I really don't. Just building on what Michelle shared, I really don't. I think that we're getting to a point where there's less and less overt racists in the world, because the world is so far advanced. It is not comfortable to be that. So, but there still exists. Okay, they do. Like people like my dad still exist. But I love what Teresa said. All I'm challenging you as somebody who comes from a racist background is awesome. I'm proud of you. Good job. And I mean that. You've overcome that. But what does God want you to do now? Whatever that is, just go do it. And it doesn't mean that you're admitting that you were ever a racist. It just means you're understanding that there are racists out there that need to be countered by maybe your actions. Like Michelle, you just said it so well. Like, I'm going to make your day better because you encountered me today. Not because I'm all that. There's that. You got to be careful there too. But you know what I mean.
Totally. Well, it's been a good long 10 weeks. 10 weeks, I think it was 9.
9.
It's been
3.
It's been a good 9 weeks, and on the hard times it felt like 18 weeks, and on the good times it felt like 2 weeks. There was up and downs, but that's the way it is when you're moving forward. So it's been good. We're going into a new series called Breaking News.
The news.
Breaking, yeah. And it's going to be a Christmas series, and just talking about all the cool things that it meant whenever Christ came to earth. And so it's going to be awesome. That's coming up starting this Sunday. And I know that we want you guys to be checking out Perspectives, praying about whether or not you should sign up for that. I know we've got a men's conference that's coming up you should check out. I know there's a Discover Lunch that's going to have a link real soon on the website. I know.
There's a youth retreat, and the only reason I'm bringing it up here, I don't need it on Sunday. Y'all, Malcolm's got 24 spots, and 15 or 16 of them are already filled.
So
don't wait.
If you want to go, which reminds me, I wonder if my daughter's one of them. Yeah, the staff people are the worst. And, anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to let you go and hope that you have a blessed week. And we'll see you on Sunday, if not sooner. See you later.
All right. Bye,
Good
guys.
night.
Peace out.
See you guys.
Eastlake Community Church is an intentional, multicultural community empowered by the Holy Spirit. We passionately pursue a loving relationship with God and everyone Jesus was sent to die for, here, near, and far.